money, your taxes, your truck, and your road to success in the trucking industry. This is Trucking Business and Beyond, the show that puts the money where it belongs, back in your pocket.
Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Friday. It's been a long week. It's April 19th. We are here live. We're live on the app. We're live on the live stream, the video stream. I think we are up to 8 live video streams now. I'm not even sure if I can name them all. LinkedIn, X, 2 on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Rumble for the first time today. So jump in and join us. It is a Friday free-for-all. We are going to focus on technology and efficiency, but we'll take your calls and answer your questions about anything at all. Joel's here already this morning, so I'm going to bring him in and get started. Joel, I'm kind of tired this morning. You want to kind of lead the show today?
Kevin, you are breaking up.
Oh, that's not good.
Oh, now you're good.
Well,
I don't know what happened.
Maybe it was just bringing you in. I just nominated you to lead the show today because I'm kind of tired.
Ooh, I lost you again.
Huh. Well, that's not good. Let me check and see if it's on my end or yours. Let me see if they're hearing me okay in the phone room. I should learn how to type and talk at the same time, but I just can't do it. There we go. We'll see where the issue is. Let me check some of my signals and see what's going on.
You want me to try calling back in?
Yeah, why don't you? Because it looks like everything is, all my audio is good on the app, on the video stream, so it's got to be the connection here on the call center or your phone, one of the two.
All right, I'll try calling back in.
Okay. We'll get you right back in here in just a second. Looks like calls are coming in already. It should be a busy day. I might try to end things a little early today. We've got a lot going on this weekend. I've got a lot going on at the farm, and I'm kind of tired. It's been one of those weeks. Been really busy, and the last couple of nights I just didn't sleep all that great. One of the things I caught yesterday scrolling the news, and I'm a little surprised. Well, maybe I'm not surprised. I would think that this would be bigger news. Like if I watch TV news, I scrolled a couple stations yesterday. I don't watch any news anymore. I just read what I need to read. But I scrolled some news yesterday and did not even hear this mentioned. Yesterday, the director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, came out and made a pretty strong statement about they fully expect that China is going to be messing with our infrastructure. They listed many companies and industries that the Chinese have hacked into. We know they've done it. They've been in there for quite a while. They talked about all kinds of companies that are connected to our infrastructure, water, power, banking, pipelines. I think they mentioned 23 different pipeline operators that they have hacked into. We know they are in these systems. We don't know exactly what their capabilities are, but we know that we've had some pipeline shutdowns, some meat processing plant shutdowns. Those things, those seemed like they may have been trial runs. And yet, I would think this would be really, really big news. If the Chinese or any country is in the system, and we know they are. And this isn't new. We've known this for well over a decade. But now the FBI is saying we expect that they are going to use this to disrupt these services. Now, for all of us, that's critically important to be prepared. You should have some emergency water on hand. If you are on city water and they can shut that down, you should have some water available. You should have cash available because if they can shut down banking systems, your credit cards and your debit cards aren't going to work anywhere. So you want to have some cash available. Food would be a good thing to have, and be prepared maybe to go without power for extended periods of time. I'm just not sure why we're not seeing more warnings about this in the news. Let's see if we've got Joel back here. Joel, is this sounding any better now?
You were sounding great just a minute ago, and as soon as you switched me live here, it's breaking up again.
That's odd. Let me bring Henry in and see. We've got Henry now. Holy cow. Henry, get your phone back in the truck. Sounds like you're holding it out the window. Henry?
Yes, I'm here. I was walking towards my truck, and the truck grabbed the phone call halfway across the parking lot.
That's what was going on. I thought you were driving down the road with your phone out the window.
No.
So are you hearing me okay?
Yeah, I'm hearing you fine. I'm going to have to mute myself probably here at the beginning. In a few minutes, I'm going to have to fuel the truck.
Got it. All right. So, Joel, is it better for you now or no?
No, it's still breaking up really bad.
Wow. Then that's got to be your phone. Henry says he's hearing me fine. Chelsea says she can hear me okay. And my audio's good on all the streams.
Let me pull you off the headset once. And
it's weird because you sound good here. You're not breaking up or anything.
All right, let me just try you straight on the phone then.
Okay. Are you on your phone now? Because you still sound fine.
I'm on the phone now, and it's still breaking up really bad.
Well, that's odd. You would think if it was your cell signal, it would be breaking up in both directions, but we're hearing you fine, and everybody else is hearing me fine.
I'm hearing Joel fine as well.
Yeah, that's odd. It's really odd. I'm going to blame it. I don't know if you heard
let me move around here.
What I was talking about there on the open. I'm going to blame it on the Chinese. I think they're hacking our phone system. This is what we would consider critical infrastructure. So I think they're coming after us.
You know, speaking of that,
the only thing I could do is call back in on a different phone.
Yeah, well, let's give that a try, because if you're not able to hear me, that's not going to work very well.
Yeah, I'll try a different phone real quick.
Okay, we'll get you back here in a minute. Go ahead, Henry. What were you saying?
Funny thing when you said China, I had two people from China ride with me the other week that make the headset that I'm on.
Oh, really?
And it was very interesting. They'd been to our country several times, but it was the first time that they didn't just go to the trade show and pop back out. They rode across to Arkansas with me.
Okay.
And you see all the stuff on the media, but when we were just sitting there, they spoke perfect English for one. They're 26 years old. And the funny observation they made at the end was, they said, we can't believe how much American history they knew. That they were rattling off as we just drove across was amazing. They knew more than a lot of people that live here.
Right.
But they made the observation that they said, we can't believe how many people have the American flag flying in front of their house and in front of businesses. They said, you'd never see that in China. Well, by that point, I'd spent the whole day with them, so I could joke with them. I said, well, I wouldn't think you'd see the American flag that much in front of businesses in China and homes. And they said, no, the Chinese flag. They said, no, you only see it at government buildings.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Not flying. I thought that was, I haven't been able to get that out of my head, but it was really neat getting to spend a day with somebody from the other side of the world, because everything that we hear or see about people is on the news, and we really weren't that far removed on pretty much anything. And the other thing that I thought was, they started sharing with me pictures of where they grew up and this and that and the other. And, well, my gosh, it wasn't that much different than anything I know.
It is kind of crazy that we talk about countries, whether it's Israel or Palestine or China or North Korea or Iran or wherever. And ultimately, we are all just human beings. The two things that tend to screw things up between human beings seem to be religion and politics.
Exactly.
When I talk about China and what they're doing, I mean, it's factual. This isn't even, tinfoil hat stuff. One of the big journalists, was it Tom Brokaw? No. One of the big journalists wrote a book about this like 10 years ago. Joel, are you hearing us clear now?
I am hearing you clear.
Excellent. Well, that was weird. But I'm glad
I had to call in on a different from Verizon to T-Mobile. So
interesting. We're talking about geopolitical issues right now.
I heard that, and I have a couple comments as soon as you finish up.
Excellent. All right. So, like today when I'm talking about China, this is factual. We've known for well over a decade that these countries, we can see when they're in our systems. We can see traces left when they're in our systems. We've known they've been in there. They have attempted a couple things here and there, more like practice runs. But the FBI director came out yesterday and said, we fully expect that they are going to start taking down our infrastructure. Now, if they do, this is pretty serious stuff. I'm just shocked that it isn't more headline news than what it is. You kind of have to go looking for it. Now, once you do a search for it, I found headlines everywhere. But most people are getting their news from social media and watching the news on TV. And even though it's on 24 hours a day and there's 37 news channels, I didn't find this story anywhere yesterday unless I went looking for it.
Gotcha. So when you look at these situations in general, I think a lot of this really goes back to, does the average person even understand their history? And my mother was watching, I don't remember which news broadcast it was this morning, and they had a table of experts sitting around, and they said, this is historically one of the worst anti-Semitic climates and one of the roughest times in American history. And I got to thinking about that. I'm thinking, are they smoking crack? Anybody remember World War II? Anybody remember the American Civil War, the Revolutionary War? And you're going to tell me that the current climate is worse than any of those climates? I don't think so. And, I think a lot of us watch this news. We just shake our heads when they say something because they're the expert. We don't question it. We don't think about it. And so when we get to little things like this nugget that they throw out about the Chinese screwing with our infrastructure, are they doing that to push us in a certain direction, or is it really happening?
Well, I will tell you this. It is happening. There is clearly enough evidence from enough different sources. We know other countries have been in our infrastructure. We also know that we do the exact same thing. I mean, we took Iran's nuclear plants offline through the internet.
Sure.
It was a pretty crazy story, too, the way they did it. They have big centrifuges as part of this equipment when they're trying to produce nuclear energy and power. And these centrifuges, we were actually able to speed them up and block that on all their sensors. So they're sitting there watching their centrifuges and everything looks just fine, except we've got them going at hyperspeed until they destroyed themselves. I mean, that's pretty crazy that we can do that. But then we also have to realize other countries can do that kind of stuff to us. So we know they're in there. But I'm with you. Why are they reporting it the way they're reporting it? I mean, I would think.
And why now?
It would be right. It should be bigger news, and more people should be aware of this so that we can be prepared. Because if we're prepared, it's not that big of a deal. We'll fix it and move on.
Well, and
if we're not prepared, people die over things like this.
well, and maybe, I don't know. I'm not a black helicopter guy, but maybe that's what the government kind of wants. They want some chaos and disorder. So you have to rely on the government to take care of business. You know what I mean? And so it may be partially that.
Now, as far as history, Joel, you and I and Henry, you would remember most of this too. The closest I can come to comparing where we are today would be the 60s and 70s with Vietnam, which was a really big, it was interesting. Joel, there's a song about Kent State University because it was so famous during 4 Dead in Ohio's the name of the song when the National Guard shot 4 students during a protest. And I just saw today there was another major protest on Kent State campus. Going on right now. We're looking at an economic situation that kind of looks like stagflation again. To me, it almost feels like the 70s all over.
Kind of a replay. That's my thought too. It's very 70-ish, I guess. You would put it, but it certainly is not the most dire time in American history, like the news likes to play it off. At least the news that I saw this morning, and how they could even begin to say the most anti-Semitic period in history is just absolutely ridiculous. And everybody at that table shook their head. Yeah, that's right. And look, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I even know better than that. I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. All these experts are agreeing to this. So why are they doing that? What's the end game here? Why do they come out with something that's just total nonsense? Have an expert throw it out there, and everybody agree to that. Why would they do that?
That's a good question. And that is the question. It's not
is it driving ratings? Is it to push people to vote a certain way in an election? Who knows? But it was clearly false. What they said. It just was not. Nothing was right about that statement at all, and every single person on that table agreed to it.
It's no different than when the media many, many times over the last couple of years has described January 6th, the way they described that, like one of the worst times in American history. I mean, we almost lost our democracy. I mean, come on. It wasn't even a blip on the radar.
Complete nonsense.
Yeah, no matter which way you feel about what happened on January 6th, let's just be realistic about it. The average American didn't even know anything happened.
Yeah, exactly. You're 100% right.
So, what else do we have today?
Geez, Pete. All kinds of stuff. I don't even know where to start, really. So Brent Hutto released the podcast that we done.
Yeah.
And I talked about the wages and whatnot with employee drivers, where we should have overtime and time value attached to it. And a lot of the groups that you spar with kind of jumped on that, and they're saying, "Oh, look, he agrees with us." And so, just to clarify here, and this is something that is very odd to me. So these groups, I don't pay a lot of attention to them, so I can't remember the names of them all. I do read stuff from time to time, and they're very good at telling you what the difference between a lease operator is and a true owner-operator with authority is, and an employee is. They're very good at drawing those distinctions, in legal terms. So they know what the differences are between the three. But when it comes to wages, they group everybody together.
Right.
And I don't understand why they do that. And that, to me, is their downfall when they do that. You can't group everybody together like that. And to me, if they really wanted to change the industry, you take a little bite, a little piece, and focus on it and make that change happen. And then if you want to go to something else, then take that little piece. But when you ask for this huge, all-encompassing change at once, it ain't ever going to happen. Just never will.
Well, and
Whether you agree with it or not. I mean, it's not a good strategy in my mind.
Yeah, we don't even have to talk about right or wrong. It's just what's effective and what isn't effective. And,
correct.
I no longer respond to those groups. I haven't for months now. I mean, I don't care what comment they make about me, about my posts. I just ignore them because it's not worth trying to interact with them. But this one yesterday, I just had to laugh. How many times in the last 2 years, we've made this a fairly big topic on a couple of our shows?
Sure. Yep,
and I can go back and remember, I don't remember exactly how it started, but it may have been me reading a headline. I don't really get all that involved in employee driver issues. It's not my thing. I mean, it's
right.
It's not good or bad that I do or don't. It's just not my thing. I can't be everything to everybody. I have a very, focus on small business. But I probably read some headline on it. You jumped in with a whole new take that I had never really thought about before because it's not an issue I've spent a lot of time on. And it was interesting enough that we kind of played out the scenario. Well, what if we did this? What if the industry tried this? What if? And I thought we had some really good conversations about it. And even though it's not my area, it was interesting. And I, by just talking it through and me listening to you, and Henry had some ideas, and I started thinking, not that it's my area, but there are ways to make improvements in this. But it's going to start where it always starts, with us. So when he's screaming now, see, we told you, you're now agreeing with us. Well, no, actually, I'm not. I'm not agreeing with you at all. Other than, yes, there could be some improvements made here, but all I've seen from these groups are screaming about protests and the government doing something. What the hell is the government going to do? Nothing. And what are your protests?
I think
they're worthless.
Yeah, they approach it completely backwards, in my opinion. It's never going to succeed. Stuff will never get done. And, while it's true you have to look at the industry holistically, you can't separate out owner-operators and company drivers and lease operators. You have to look at this holistically, but you have to take the issues one particular specific issue at a time.
Yes.
And in my mind, if you fix driver employee pay, you're going to fix a whole lot of problems without having to do anything else in the industry because the market's going to have to adjust to that. And that rising tide will raise all boats. And so if Schneider and J.B. Hunt have to pay their company guys overtime and time value attached, guess what? Guess what's going to happen to rates?
Rates have to go up.
Things are going to move up.
Yeah, that was...
Yes, and that's going to impact our owner-operators and lease operators as well.
And that's why...
The part that gets me going is the same groups are usually... I don't follow them much like you do, Kevin, because I pull my hair out.
Yeah.
But often are after more flexibility, and usually what does that do? That makes us more available, which does what to the rate?
Drops it down.
Yes, it drives... It drives rates down, yes.
Well,
really, I mean, to me, more than anything, beyond the economics, beyond anything else of this, it is a safety issue. If you are regulated by the hour and paid by the mile, you have to take chances. You have to. There's no way around that to preserve your paycheck.
Right.
And it just sets the table for guys to speed through construction. It's not the ELD. It's how we're paid. If the guy has time value attached to his pay, when I slow down, I get a pay raise.
Yes. Well, let's think about how complicated this gets. It really plays to two really big issues that our industry is a big part of. You just mentioned one, safety. Being out on the roads is a dangerous place for anybody, and anything we can do as an industry to make it safer, we should consider that. Then the other place that we can really have an impact on our economy is also efficiency and productivity. And fuel is our biggest cost, and it's a waste. When we waste fuel, there's no winner other than the oil companies. The economy gets hurt. Every company in trucking gets hurt when we waste fuel. But yet, when we talk about these things
Correct.
and we offer real world improvements, not protest, not waiting for the government to do something that is going to be completely ineffective anyway, we have solutions. But those are the things we're mostly criticized for. Oh, what do you mean slow down? Well, why wouldn't you slow down?
Well,
Other than if you're an
Yes, you
employee
have to
driver
understand
being paid
that
by
productivity.
by the mile. That's the only reason not to slow down. So let's fix that.
Right.
It's a piece rate mentality, and piece rate never brings quality.
Right. When you are driven by productivity in all aspects, which is how we're set up right now, and that's why we have by the mile pay, because we are trying to drive productivity at the expense of safety and efficiency. There is no doubt about that. That is clearly what is happening. The other problem I see with a lot of these groups is they'll throw hard numbers out, and one of them showed up in my feed. They're saying every employee driver should get $45 an hour, and a truck should make $150 an hour sitting at a dock. Well, listen, maybe that works for operation A or B, but it may not work for C. So I'm okay with saying, look, let's attach time value to driver's pay. We already have minimum wages in effect for states and federal. Whichever guideline you want to use, you have to at least meet that minimum wage. But when we start getting very specific like that and saying, let's make this number a law, okay, what if the economic conditions change and that 45 is no longer enough? Maybe it needs to be 85. Then you need an act of Congress to change that, right?
Right.
And it makes no sense to put yourself in that box.
Correct.
And, the other big thing is, I think a lot of the people that try to transition from a company driver to a lease operator to an owner operator do it because they're looking at gross money. And we've talked about this till we're blue in the face, difference between gross and net. They see all this gross money floating around and they want to better themselves. And I completely get that. You should be able to make enough money as a company driver to live comfortably, right? You shouldn't have to be forced to make these jumps if you don't want to run a business. And I think, unfortunately, we've got so many people that they're going broke as a company driver. They love to drive truck. They want to make this jump into a lease operator, owner operator, whatever they can, because they see these big gross numbers flying around and think, look, I'm going to make a lot more money doing this. And it's not always the case. So we get a lot of people owning trucks that have no business owning trucks. They're great drivers. They're very good out on the road, but they have no business sense at all. And
let's clarify something.
Is a problem as well.
Because I agree with your statement completely, that is what happens in the real world. It happens in almost every industry. That is what occurs in a free market, a free, open, competitive market. So I just want to clarify, I don't think you're asking for the government to change anything about how easy it is to get into business, or we need more barriers, or you're stating a true fact, and that is the way it should be. That's the way I want it. I want everybody, if they decide they want to try being in business, it should be easy. And then, I use myself as an example. I got into business. I made every mistake you could make. I had no money. I had no knowledge about business. I had no plan. I hadn't thought it through. It just seemed like a good thing to me. I guess I've always kind of had an entrepreneur mindset. I was painting cars at 16 at home in my garage, making money doing it. And I took that money and I bought a gym. So at 22, to me, it just seemed logical not to go drive a truck for somebody else, just to buy my own. Well, I almost didn't survive. I mean, it was really, really close a couple of times over the years. Had there been bigger barriers to entry, I may not be in the industry. I may have gone and done something else.
You're exactly right. I'm not talking about regulating or putting up barriers to entry. What I'm talking about is, if you're going to make that jump, you need to get educated so you understand the difference between a truck driver and a business owner.
Right.
And there's a huge difference between the two. I'm a business owner that can drive a truck.
Right.
A truck driver that wants to run a business is a problem.
Yes. I agree.
It just is. I mean, it just is. It is a problem. So it's the government never fixes these problems. They only make them worse when they get involved in the business end of it. Now, in terms of the employee driver and their protections, we have set standards in this country that every other employee enjoys the protections. All I'm saying is let's bring the truck driver up to the standard of everybody else. Everybody else gets a minimum wage and they get overtime.
I agree.
We should enjoy the same standards that everybody else. Otherwise, and this is a safety thing, you're going to continue to have the turnover that you have, because it's just as easy to go to Wendy's and work for $14 an hour and put in some overtime and make almost as much money as your typical company guy right now.
Yeah.
You know, it really is.
No, I agree.
You know, there's a local fast food place, $14 an hour. Like, holy Jesus, you know,
yeah.
what's happening? And so that part of it needs to be addressed just purely from a safety aspect. If we continue to have turnover, drivers do not get the experience that they need to become good, safe drivers over time. And so we need to address that turnover for a safety issue. Also, there's a national security component to this. If we don't have a robust and healthy transportation system, we're going to have supply chain issues. So there's another reason why the government maybe should be involved on the employee end of it. But as far as on the business end of it, get them out. They got no, you know, the whole stuff about a minimum wage for a business that's just crazy. You know, price controls are nuts. They don't work. It's dumb.
Yeah, and this is not inconsistent in every industry across all kinds of sectors. We offer consumers and employees strong protections. So if you are a consumer and you have a problem with a business, our laws tend to favor the consumer. And the idea is, look, the consumer is the amateur here. The business knows what they're doing. We don't want businesses taking advantage of individuals. That is consumer to business law or employee to business law. We offer pretty strong protections. When it comes to business, we don't offer those kind of protections, and we shouldn't.
No, you're exactly right. And if we take the history example again, go back to, you know, before we were allowed to organize labor back in the 1800s, we had sweatshops. They had people working 7 days a week, you know, 14, 15 hours a day. And we don't want any of that, obviously. And if we don't have some type of government regulation in place, essentially that's what's happened to the truck driver right now. We work twice as many hours as a company driver as most other jobs or employees do. You know, we're out here 70 hours. Most people work 40, and then they start to be rewarded if they work over 40, and we don't see any of that. So essentially, we're still kind of laboring under an archaic form of pay structure, you know, that was pretty common way back when, the sweatshop times in a sense. But, you know, we need that customary and normal protection for employee drivers. But you're 100% right. When you get into business, in my mind, you get into business because you believe in yourself. You believe that you understand how markets work. You understand that they go up and down. You don't want the government in your face. You want the freedom to do what you think is right and run your business how you want to. I don't want a group of protesters telling me how I have to set my rates.
Exactly.
To me, that makes no sense at all. Why would I get into business at that point?
Right.
You know, I don't want a group of protesters telling me what brokers I can trust, or, you know, I don't want that. And they may be well-intentioned, but I don't want other people telling me how I run my business. And if I go broke, I go broke.
Yeah. I agree. Hey, I'm just looking at the board. We should get to some calls because they're piling up on us.
All righty.
I'm going to bring Matt in. I'm not sure if you've been listening to the show, you guys, but Matt had that international with the S13 in it for a week. And he's going to give us some numbers and some results. So, Matt, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, everyone.
So you got some results for us?
Yeah. I could comment on everything you talked about beforehand too, but we don't have all day.
I'm sure you could.
Yeah, the first thing one comment is I'm in the middle of rebidding my direct customer right now, and it is, to use one of Kevin's terms, a bloodbath.
I was going to say it's got to be pretty
I'm not
scary.
going to say anything until it's done and over with, but I cannot believe how low some people are bidding freight right now.
I'm sure.
Year-long dedicated freight, you have to be there. It's unbelievable, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think based on what I've been seeing in some of the rates and some of the a lot of the big carriers are reporting first quarter results, they are abysmal. I have a feeling we are about to see what we've been waiting for. I don't think we were at the bottom. I think within the next quarter or two, we're going to see what the bottom really looks like.
So, yeah, as far as the international trucks, first thing, which you guys have way more experience at, this truck had the full electric APU, which I've never had used one, and, only used it for 3 days. But I was blown away on how good that system is going into Florida with it. And so highly recommend it for anybody shopping the APU is look at the electric.
Yeah,
I definitely would agree with that. I'm a huge electric fan. I don't like the diesel motor out there running. I don't like the maintenance. I don't like anything about a diesel APU. I think the electrics nowadays are far superior. Even, maybe 5 years ago when I really first started playing with them, there were a few challenges as far as getting them to run long enough and battery life. But for the most part, I think we've got it pretty well figured out now.
I think so too, and I think from here they only continue to get better. We will just continue to improve battery life, battery charging times, run times, all of those things. The one thing I still try to tell people, because they will come up with that one scenario. Well, I was in Texas and it was 110 degrees and I had to do my 34-hour restart and there's no way it would keep up with that. Okay, I'm not going to fight you. You're right, but just turn your truck on. It doesn't happen that often. It's not that big of a deal. Idle your truck that weekend if you have to. But why would you allow that one crazy, weird scenario that you want to come up with stop you from using a system that is, I believe, right now superior to a diesel APU? And it will only get better from here.
I 100% agree.
When was the last time we made any significant improvement on diesel APUs? My God, they've hardly changed in 30 years.
You're exactly right.
My situation, I bought brand new Thermo King Tri-Pack in 2007, which, back then, that was really our only options. Electric wasn't even an option, not a reliable option for sure. I don't know if there was any options. But the price, and I still got the exact same unit. I've moved it from one truck to the next, and I'm still running my 2007. It has been rebuilt once, and basically it replaced everything on it at one point or another. But the price of that has doubled from what I paid for it. What is that, 10, 13, 17 years ago now?
Yeah.
Coming up in July?
Yeah.
So...
Don't that make you feel old, right?
Yeah. Well, so there's another fact. Joel, your interview on Freight Nation with Brett Hunto was awesome, and it's kind of amazing when you hear people we know of and then hear your history and how many similarities it has with myself.
Yeah.
I started in the garbage recycling business.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
It was in August. I started for a garbage company on a recycling route, And this year in August, that was 30 years ago. 1994.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Nice.
Which, if you asked me 1994, I wouldn't guess 30 years ago. It doesn't seem that.
No, I'm the same way. I'm thinking 87 year I graduated. That was just a few years ago. You know?
I know.
You know? So yeah, the information on the truck, I posted it, 9+ mile per gallon club. I posted it in the trucking tribe, and which unfortunately your guys' system, Kevin, on the trucking tribe, it's hard to post videos. So the better videos are going to be on Facebook.
Okay.
But all the information is still there, and the fuel mileage. And one disadvantage for me comparing this brand new truck is I don't have a whole lot of experience in newer trucks. The most recent new truck I drove before this one would have been a 2019 Freightliner, and it was a rental truck.
Right.
Before that, on the Volvo side, was probably like an 18, somewhere in there, and that was a one-day deal. Well, not even a day, half a day. Borrowed from a friend of mine to just go load a load. So I don't have my experience and what I'm coming from and what I'm going to, or it's not a fair comparison when you talk Freightliner, Volvo, International, even any pay car product.
Well, hold on one second here. The great thing about this is you have no preconceived notions of what this truck is supposed to do. So a lot of times the type of feedback that we're going to get from you is actually going to be better than if me or Henry jumped in it, because we have preconceived ideas of how things should work. You know, I'm thinking it should work the Volvo way. Henry thinks it should work the Freightliner way. We get into an International, and it may be doing a perfectly fine job, but a lot of times we're going to critique things to the level where maybe we shouldn't. It happens a lot. It's very hard to, when you are involved with new equipment to the level that me and Henry are, and we get to talk to engineers that have preconceived ideas of the way things should go. I like your level of feedback, even though you do not have the ability to directly compare it. I think that's probably a good thing, because you're not going to have that, well, it should really work this way, but it's working this way type of thing going on.
So yeah, I was overall impressed with the truck, and the big thing, like say for me, is the technology in the truck, which I hear a lot of people complain about, which the lane departure warning beeping every time you get on the white line. Yes, that's annoying, but
hey,
look, make adjustments there.
Well, and I'm going to comment on that, because the first time I put this kind of technology in a truck in the early 2000s with the smart cruise and the forward-looking radar, and every time I put a driver in that truck, even another contractor that I let use it one day, they started complaining about how annoying the alarm was on their following distance. And I looked at him and I said, "Are you kidding me?" And they said, "What?" And I said, "All that's telling me is you follow too close. There's nothing wrong with the system. You are following too close. That's why it's going off all day. Listen to it." Well, I've been driving for 28 years and I've never had an accident. I get it. But the statistics show that you are in more danger of an accident based on the way you're driving. Why not just fix that problem? Why does it hurt you to back off a little bit and allow 2 more car lengths in between you and the vehicle in front of you? It's not that hard.
So
yeah,
Kevin,
it's an easy cure on that.
Yeah, we've talked about this in the past also. One of the main disconnects with these systems versus the humans, where we see everything in distance and it sees everything in time.
Good
so
point.
As we increase speed, we maintain the same distance, and we think we're doing just fine. Where the computer's looking at the time, as you increase speed, your time distance closes, right? And we don't pick that up as humans.
You know, here's a good
so
example
it starts
of
squawking
that.
at you, and you're
right.
looking at it thinking everything's just fine.
And here's a good example of that.
Joel,
I used to actually...
Joel, I'll add to that. It's not just time. it's rate of closure.
Right, which is
Well,
So if you're
yeah,
closing
rate
up
of closure
we're
would
doing
be time,
35 and you're doing
right. So here's a great example of that. Yes, if you get too close and you're following a car ahead of you that's basically at the same speed, but you start creeping up on it, it warns you, and it should. But I also had cars cut me off after passing me with less than a car length in between us, and the alarm would not go off because of the speed differential. I thought it was a pretty impressive system. And that was in the early 2000s. Why are we having so many problems with them now?
Well, yeah.
A
So
lot
the
of
company
times-
driver that drove it before me, that was it. The front end side of it didn't bother me at all. I just had the hitting the white line too much.
Yeah.
And that was the first 2 days. By the end of the week, I didn't even have a problem with that system.
So in a sense,
I'd adjusted my driving.
I was just about to say, in a sense, it made you a better driver. After all these years of experience, we still found this little piece of technology that said, hey, look, you tend to wander over to these lines quite a bit. Maybe you should tighten up. And you did. I don't see that as a bad thing.
And the best thing about and Kevin, you make this mistake a lot, talking about the adaptive cruise control, which adaptive is just the radar pointing out in front of you. And all these new systems, it actually shows you on the dash the speed of the vehicle in front of you.
Oh,
So
nice.
It'll show you that vehicle's
Yes,
doing
it does.
65 and your cruise is set at 67, so it'll drop down, whatever the numbers are. But I love that. And then there's the predictive cruise, which is the satellite predicting the
Got
hills.
it. Okay.
I really was impressed with that system, where I felt like we hadn't even hit the flat ground yet. We're still almost going uphill.
Right.
It would shift into E-coast and just coast along, but the speed never dropped.
Yeah.
So the truck knew we were flat enough to
Right.
not waste any fuel.
Yeah. Yeah. Good
So
stuff.
That was very impressive. So the big question I'm sure everybody wants to know is, am I going to buy a new truck? And everybody knows I'm a numbers guy.
Right.
And now this isn't going to compare to anybody else because I'll admit I'm not normal and I'm certainly not average, and nor do I want to be by any means. So between fuel mileage savings, increased insurance cost, going from no truck payment to having a truck payment, and even using Joel's number of 4 cents a mile for maintenance the first couple of years, and then I adjusted that up over a 5-year average. Best case scenario, my profit would drop by 6 cents a mile on a brand new truck.
Got it.
Now, I can see myself buying a newer used truck because that changes the numbers a lot, but I got to fight in my own head. The comfort level of that new one was awesome.
Well, I know that
compared to
That's right.
my truck looks decent. It's not what Dale Howard calls a wounded gazelle driving down the road. Most
Right.
of it's been repainted. Mechanically, it is sound, but internally, the HVAC system, a lot of electrical issues.
Right.
This truck, in my opinion, is a piece of shit, but
Mm-hmm.
I can deal with it. You could never put a company driver in this truck.
Which
Yes.
is one of the
Wouldn't work.
advantages of running a single truck operation as an owner-operator or a small fleet where the owner still drives. I did the same thing. When I drove and I had multiple trucks, drivers got all the new trucks. I took the worst truck in the fleet because I can deal with that. It's just not a big
Yep.
deal.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. I always drove the worst
Yeah,
truck
it's
in the
per-
fleet. The drivers got the new stuff.
Yeah, pretty typical.
Oh.
Pretty damn typical.
yeah, so
Done the same things.
Right.
Yep.
But at 6 cents a mile, that's a close enough number.
Yeah,
I would still say it's worth it.
You could
the-
easily make the argument with those numbers that buying a new truck makes sense, right?
The driver comfort on the inside is worth 6 cents a mile.
Yeah.
Just on its own. So,
but you know what I like better about
here's
this
where that 6 cents really. Here's the wild card that you can't really throw into this. So, at some point in time, there's a likelihood that older truck is going to have a catastrophic failure out on the road with a customer load on it that has to be there like yesterday. It seems like that's how it always happens.
Right.
And as a single fleet owner, as long as you have good communication with your customer, if you have a direct customer, you may survive that. You might not. When you start to add in your downtime, that 6 cents really starts to evaporate really fast. Where it absolutely evaporates is when you're in a position like I'm in now, what I really didn't want, but now I've got kids that want to come and drive, and so I'm going to have multiple drivers. So when you start to have multiple trucks and you have direct customers that start to rely on you more and more to move a bigger percentage of their freight, you can't have that catastrophic failure. You just can't. And you can't hire drivers to drive the older trucks, just like we talked about. If you have driver retention and recruiting thrown into the picture, that 6 cents is nothing.
Right.
So you're exactly right. I mean, you can really make a case as a single owner operator, but if you have more than one truck or you hire drivers, it's a no-brainer. It really is.
Yeah.
And that's where I have actually a disagreement with you on that, and that is a personal me, not like I say, not the average person out here, because of my mechanical abilities. And
you will get through most of that. Yes.
That I drive, I can keep
I 100%
this truck
agree.
on the road better than I can keep a new truck on the road, because when the electrical
yes, in
stuff
your
on the new
particular
truck goes,
situation. Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Which
I agree.
is a really
I agree. In your particular situation, yes.
Which is a really good lesson here. Two good lessons here. One, Matt gave us the absolute breakdown and how we should look at this. He took all the cost of his current truck, predicted all the cost of the new truck. Some we don't even have to predict. We know for sure. We can figure out exactly what our payment's going to cost us. We can get a quote, know what insurance is going to cost us. Matt got to drive the truck for a week, so we know fuel mileage numbers in his operation, and we can predict maintenance cost, and he came within 6 cents. At that point, it could be a coin toss. We have all the numbers here, and it's close enough that you get to make your own personal. There's almost no right or wrong answer in this case. Now, had it worked out to where, the new truck is going to save 12 cents a mile, now you have to really start looking at it hard, because there's arguments you can make in both directions here. If I don't have a big truck payment, it's easier for me to take a month off if I decide I want to. Can't always do that when.
Well, that was going to be my point. That was going to be my point, Kevin, is when you were doing your figures, Matt, did you figure on the amount that it ends up being down and how much time you actually have to work on it? Figuring your time has a value as well. I understand you're able to do that, and it doesn't show up on the books quite that way, but that's the one thing that I've enjoyed over the years that I've...
Hey, Matt, I love doing this kind of numbers, but I'm going to have to cut you loose because I just realized our phone board is completely full. That almost never happens. That means we've got people not even able to get through. I think it's a conspiracy. I started the show today saying, it's Friday, I'm kind of tired, it's been a long week, I'm going to knock off early today. And I think everybody said, oh, hell no, you're not, we're calling. So I guess we better get to the calls. Let's go to North Carolina. Jeremy, welcome.
How's it going, guys?
Good. What can I help you
I
with?
have an oil sample and was wondering if you guys could look at the oil sample.
I think I have it here in front of me. What engine is this? We're missing some information here.
Yeah, I didn't know why they didn't put that on there, but it's a DD15 288,000 miles on the truck. This sample is after the oil was new, and it has 60,000 miles on the oil.
60,000 on the oil.
Yes.
This is a fantastic oil sample. With 60,000 miles on it, this oil is almost still like new.
Okay. So the boron that they kind of flagged
So
means nothing? Or?
I wish I could get them to change this sample. I have to say this so many times. When you're looking at the sample and you see those headings across the top, like we have wear metals, then contaminant metals, those are critically important. The next two on the top line, multi-source metals and additive metals. I wish they would just take them off the report. I have reviewed tens of thousands of oil samples, and never, ever do I look at those because there's no good information there that we need. I wish they would just take it off. Then when we go down to sample information, contaminants, fluid properties, those are all important. So yes, you can just totally ignore that boron. And honestly, you are so close to this sample being a 0, you got a 3 on tin. That bumped you up to a level 1 instead of a level 0. But that's 3 parts per million of tin. So this is a really, really clean sample for 60,000 miles.
Okay. On the base number, when do I need to start to add base? I have it here in the truck with me because
I wouldn't even mess with it till we get under 2, and I'm almost starting to think we should wait till we get under 1. I mean, as long as there is base left and you don't see any number to the left of that in the acid number, then there's no damage occurring. I mean, if we have any base left, that means it's still neutralizing oil. I used the 2 number because I think I remember reading it somewhere, but honestly, anymore, I would just say just don't let your base get to 0.
Okay. All right. So basically now I'm going to change the oil bypass filter because I was holding off until I got the sample. I just came in the other day. How often do I need to change the actual oil filter on the side of the block? I'm assuming that the oil filter, I don't want it to go until it deteriorates. So I was thinking every 75,000, but
let's talk about that. So there was a time when we first started doing bypass filtration, and I believe it was Harvard. That was the first filter I used, and I believe their engineers told me if you change your full flow filter once a year, you'll be okay. They won't deteriorate. It won't cause, and I did it for years. And for some reason, I think when I switched to the OPS was recommending 6 months. So I switched. But honestly, I never saw a problem in a year. Now, here's the other thing we could go by. Hey, Henry, what is the recommended oil change on the DD15 now? Is it 70 or 75,000?
It's 75,000 if you're over 7 miles to the gallon.
Yeah,
which I keep arguing with them, being I'm up in the 10 mile to the gallon range, that I should be at 100,000.
That's right. But here's what we know: they're not worried about.
In fact, the oil analysis.
Yeah, you broke up a little bit there. But what that tells us is the OEM is not worried about that full flow filter being on there for 75,000 miles, which probably tells me it's easily good for 100.
You're exactly right on this. The new Volvo coming out, it's a 90,000 mile interval on just a regular filter. We have run regular Volvo extended life filters out over 100,000 miles, cut them open, and they look like brand new. So there's no real problem with a quality filter and deterioration.
Right.
Okay.
It's funny that you bring that up, Kevin. I was worried on my Davco on my truck that it has 300,000. I'm still at the bottom inch of it. But I was talking to the people at Davco at a show, and they're like, yeah, with the new material, there's no worries. Just don't replace it till it rises.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Speaking of that, I actually just removed my Davco and had an air dog put on. And they were saying that the lights will sometimes flicker and come on.
There.
And my anything over 1,000 RPM and that light is on. So I didn't know, is it still filtering? I didn't know if it was still filtering when that light's on, even though the pressure kind of goes down, or...
That I couldn't. You'd have to ask the folks at AirDog on that. Mine doesn't do that on the Volvo side, so I have no idea.
Yeah, they said, I was told that they have like a pressure valve that releases, and then when that pressure valve releases, it doesn't show that it's under pressure anymore, and so then the light's on. So I just didn't know
gotcha.
if it was still doing the filtering process of the. I mean, it runs just fine. So.
Yeah, I'm sure it probably is, but it's best to check with them. Jay will have an answer for you, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right.
All right.
All right. Appreciate it.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
so much.
Thanks for the call. Let's go to Texas. Tony, welcome.
What's up, Doc? I wanted to ask Joel about, well, it's better than the other one, right?
It is better than the other one.
Joel, about my manifold and how much that would help efficiency or fuel economy. See, I had gone with the Max Fleet Air filters, and I didn't see any change, but keep in mind that there was that manifold bolt issue, and, you know, you have exhaust coming out of there, soot and whatever. Now that I've gotten all that fixed, I'm wondering, you know, how that could impact my fuel economy with manifold bolts being put back in.
So you're saying that the manifold on the intake was leaking? Is that what you're saying? Or was it on the exhaust side?
Yeah, it's probably on the exhaust side.
Well, if you got a leak on the exhaust side, then your boost is going to be a little bit funky. So, when you seal those up, it definitely has the potential to increase your fuel efficiency. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
an exhaust leak, that's gonna reduce the potential boost that you're able to make if the leak is big enough.
Yeah, I was noticing a pretty big.
Joel, I know that's a big time on a DD15.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. Yep.
Okay, well, now that people are bored and with that, I do have, you know, the excitement for the day. Last time, you were talking about the time value of, you know, paying drivers for time value. I might have missed that. But what if we could, you know, eliminate hours of service and have a way, I mentioned biometrics, you know, having a system where the truck could tell whether the driver was sufficient to drive or not. I got shut down last time, don't know the reason why, but I don't want to debate it. If we had that in place to where it wasn't by hours of service, but it was about the health of the driver and whether they're medically okay to drive at that moment, and when they're not, it shuts down. If we had that, what would that do to the economy and our jobs?
It's not going to help matters any, for sure. I mean, everything is at a whim then. I mean, your supply chain would have no consistency to plan on, right? So if a guy wakes up and he's still a little bit tired and the truck won't start and let him run down the road, you know, it's going to keep it parked, and that's going to create all kinds of havoc as far as delivery times and whatnot, for sure.
I've got a pretty strong
I
opinion
think most
about
people.
This. So, and I'm not sure how you make this work in the real world, though. This is my own personal experience. Hours of service never worked to tell me when I was tired or when I was safe. It was a horribly inconsistent. I mean, I think we've all experienced this. You had a nice, relaxing weekend, got plenty of sleep. Typical for me when I ran out of Ohio, you'd have an early morning appointment on the East Coast somewhere. You'd have to get up really early Monday morning, usually. Lots and lots of sleep. 2 hours in, I cannot keep my eyes open. And I got to pull over and take a nap.
Yep.
And it might only take me a 20 or 30-minute nap, and all of a sudden I feel 100% better, and now I could go drive 15 hours if I needed to. Hours of service.
And we all know that nobody can do that on hours of service.
Well,
It'll put you out of service, but under this system, you can.
That's kind of my point.
So I think everybody wants to hear that we need more hours. They can drive more than they're allowed.
Let me finish my thought.
If you could, what does that do?
Let me finish my thought. So
lowers the value.
Hours of service did not work for me. It just didn't match the reality of when I was safe and when I wasn't. There were other times where I could drive 20 hours. I've done it.
Everybody knows this.
Completely safe doing it.
True, across the board.
Now, I will also say that I have personal vehicles with all those safety features that tell you when you're too drowsy to drive. They're not accurate either. There are times where that thing comes on and tells me I need to pull over and take a break, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I couldn't be more alert.
But we're saying that it does. We're saying we have a system that it does, where it is accurate, and everything that you did, that you survived, is legal now. Well, I think that makes for less drivers and increase in pay. Because we're working more hours, that has to mean less drivers. I got shut down and called an asshole last time, and I want to know why.
You're making huge assumptions. One, you're making a huge assumption that we can build a system that will truly know when a human being is safe to drive, and when we haven't been able to do that yet. That's a big assumption.
We have to pretend that we can and explore what the impact of that would be, because I think it's important.
You're making.
We have to shut out that variable.
You made the guess that if this system was accurate, we would be able to drive more. How do you know that? How do you know that this system wouldn't have us driving less?
We have to again pretend like it would.
No, you can't pretend.
So that is what should happen.
Go ahead, Joel, because I think
that's what everybody is thinking.
This.
Everybody's thinking that if they have this system, that they'd be allowed to drive more.
Truck that you're talking about.
In a second,
right. Let's suppose we could build that truck. Okay, we could build a truck that does everything that you're describing. It's only one itty bitty little step to eliminate the human component. At that point, if the technology is good enough to do what you're talking about, a fully autonomous truck is extremely easy at that point.
There you go.
If with technology, all being the same, and that pulls the human right out of it.
That is the ultimate answer of what you're leading up to. We've had technology that makes us supposedly safer. Lane departure, automatic braking. All we're leading up to here is if we now say this truck is going to be so smart that it knows when the driver is too tired. Joel's absolutely right. Then it doesn't need the driver anymore.
Right. You don't need the driver anymore.
We're not
That's
talking
exactly
about
right.
that.
We don't need a truck so smart that says, hey, driver, you're dumb. It's just going to say, let's make the truck smart enough to do the job without the driver. That's exactly what will happen. I mean, we could go down this hypothetical that you're building, but does it really make any sense too? Because it's never going to happen, because once we're good enough at building trucks, the human comes out of it.
Yeah.
And then we don't have the problem anymore. You just totally eliminate the variable. And that's what you're talking about. How well can we manage the variable in the truck? The ideal solution from a business standpoint is to eliminate the variable. The variable is the driver.
Well, and let's, even though
I don't think that'll ever happen.
To talk about it,
and I don't think we should waste time on that part. I think we should concentrate on what it would do to our pay and the market if there were less drivers and we could drive more, because everybody knows that we're capable of it. It's just illegal.
You made a bunch of assumptions that just aren't true. So why would we waste time discussing? You said let's not discuss.
I'm not making any assumptions. Everybody knows we should be able to be allowed to drive more and on a different schedule, like you said.
Wait. I don't care even if you can drive more. I just don't want to. 70 hours a week is plenty of time to work.
That's important. I did miss that.
It lowers your value.
Correct. I've
does.
I've never played into the drive faster, get more miles mentality ever. I want to work less and profit more.
The more you're available, the less you become worth.
Okay.
That's supply and demand. Adding to this, if they ever really were after safety, we wouldn't need the ELDs or any of that. And this will never happen either. But if you really wanted safety, you'd have the driver sleeping on the same sleep schedule every day, because there's nothing that switches you around more than switching shifts and everything else.
And honestly,
they would have it on your driver's license. Pick your 14, and you can do whatever you want with that 14. And
Henry,
there it is.
I'm going to take that one step further. I've done enough research on this to know there are no human beings that function well overnight. It's just it's encoded into our genes.
Right.
We do not function as well overnight as we do in the day. So if we really wanted to make this all about safety, trucks would not be on the road at night.
So all trucks would be 9 to whatever, or 7 a.m. to whatever.
We know that's not practical. And what we've said really is, in our society, we are willing to kill a few people for more productivity. We don't do things based just on safety. And I'm not saying we should. Being in the world is a dangerous place. It always has been. But we just should look at that. Ultimately, as much as I hate to say this, if we want the safest, most productive roads possible, it probably will be autonomous trucks. I don't know how you could argue against that. And we would need a lot fewer trucks.
But you don't like assumptions.
And not only that,
there's no way that you'd like autonomous trucks.
The drivers and owners and everything else keep going after flexibility, which makes us more available, which lowers our value.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is, shouldn't it be a good idea to force the docks to be flexible by having us being inflexible? Because if we're inflexible, the only way that the system works is if the docks become flexible.
Right.
And I've never seen a dock make a mistake and hit a school bus.
Yeah, you're right. Hey, Tony, I got to cut you loose because the calls are still piling up on us. That's a good point, Henry. Let's and we could argue that whole thing: autonomous trucks, safety, all that, on and on and on. Like I said, technology would make us safer. Autonomous vehicles will be safer, but I don't necessarily want to go there. I don't think we're going to have a lot of choice, though. Nothing has ever really slowed down the progression of technology, and I don't see anything slowing it down now.
Sort of, Kevin.
What's that?
If you look up 1956, General Motors could do an autonomous vehicle, and they predicted by 1976 that nobody would be driving vehicles anymore.
Well, it was. Aren't we supposed to be at least flying around in jets and kind of spacecraft by now?
But look it up on YouTube sometime. 1956 General Motors autonomous car. It's hilarious. It's kind of corny, but they were able to do it in 1956.
Yeah, I'm sure. Let's get to some more calls. Let's go to Iowa. Don, welcome.
Hi guys, how are you today?
Good. What's on your mind?
I don't know. I've been trying to debate this for the last couple weeks, and I've been trying to get a hold of Joel and left him messages and haven't got it. And I've talked to Dwayne and about parameters on these trucks. I'm thinking that this is just my thought. I'm sure you're going to tell me when I'm wrong or if I'm wrong, that your parameters are different on Purple Haze and that Blueberry than are coming from the factory, correct?
No.
So your parameters in your truck are exactly the same parameters that I have in mine.
You can have multiple different. Correct. You can have multiple different parameter sets from the factory.
Right. What?
I don't know what you have for sure. I'd have to go back and look at it and see exactly what you have set. Blueberry is basically, it is a very, very, very typical iTorque spec. So I without looking at your entire parameter list, I can't say for sure what you've got set for parameters in your truck. I'd have to there's the big one is the adaptive torque. Is it on or is it off? This is the big one that really can affect performance. And then there's a couple different shift logic options that are in there. Typically, you get I can't remember the name of the shift logic that comes with the iTorque, but it's kind of the middle of the road type of shift logic. And typically, the adaptive torque is turned on with the package that you have. Straight torque, in my opinion, when you're running a downsped operation, allows you to get into overdrive more often with lighter loads. In my opinion, it bumps the fuel efficiency.
So one of the things you'll say
beyond that, go ahead.
Is that he's not like a factory race team where he gets the latest cutting edge technology to test before it goes to production. He's got a production truck that's set up a very specific way, but you could do that. You could match all of his settings from any dealer if you know what you're asking for. He's not running an experimental truck.
Then why aren't they coming from the factory set up like that? Why is the factory saying that it's the dealer's responsibility? And the dealer doesn't have a damn clue what the hell.
Responsibility. It's always the dealer's responsibility. Let me tell you why. Because the factory doesn't know how that truck's going to be used. The dealer is supposed to be asking questions. How is this truck used? What is the duty cycle? How fast do you want to go? What's your operating area? What's your weight? All those types of things the factory cannot know. They don't know what that is. The dealer is supposed to find all that stuff out and then put the settings in the truck to match the customer's request.
That's how the system
The dealer doesn't know how to order the damn truck, let alone set the damn parameters.
Well, there are definitely challenges to get salespeople to understand the new technology, just like there's challenges getting the drivers to understand the new technology. And when you get out a little in front of the dealers, their knowledge base, it gets frustrating. It gets frustrating for me having to deal with some of these dealers.
So, Don,
they're just not up to speed. And that's something that's happening across the industry. It's odd because we have new technology, but we've got salespeople that are kind of trapped in the mid-1990s mindset. And it does become very frustrating. So I understand where you're coming from.
There's another way to look at this, though. And Don, here's why we do this show. And here's why we do things like the CMC and other programs. I kind of like the way the system works now. Volvo builds a truck that could do everything from short, expedited, in a local area to long haul, extreme weight kind of stuff. That's wonderful that truck is capable of all those things with different drive lines and different parameters. Now, the more capable it is, the more complicated it becomes. We're never, I'm just going to make this statement, we are never going to educate salespeople on how to spec these trucks right. It's too complicated. If you want a perfectly spec truck for every one of these operations, you have to have a lot of knowledge about a lot of different things. I don't ever see salespeople having that. Will we get better that there will be packages that you could order? I think so, and I think Volvo's probably leading that. But I look at this as an advantage for me. If everybody had the perfectly spec truck just because all they had to do was ask the dealer for it, then everybody would be really, really efficient, which isn't a bad thing for the market overall. But I like that personal advantage that we've created here. We can help people spec a truck to be more efficient than their competitors. I'm competitive. I don't like when I hear the term level playing field. And if everybody can go in and spec a 9 or a 10 mile per gallon truck without knowing anything, that just took away one of my advantages.
Then why does Volvo basically is what you're saying is building a truck and then it's up to me to find the right parameters.
Yes.
But if I'm not so-called technical, whatever, on what parameters I need, I'm basically screwed in this deal because I'm ordering a truck on premises of 8.5 or 9, 10, 11 miles a gallon because my truck is almost identical to to Purple Haze. Only mine's an 860, his is a 760.
Let me clarify.
And he's 2.5 miles a gallon, at least 2.5 miles a gallon better than I'm getting.
Well, so
and I want to know why.
Well, let's talk about
here's
a
the
couple
problem.
of things.
It's a different duty cycle.
It's a different driver. It's a different duty cycle. It's different weather conditions. It's different road surfaces. It's different geography. There are so many variables. I scream about this all the time. You can't compare two trucks logically and make any sense of it. But let me go back and clarify something else that I want people to hear differently. You said, so Volvo, well, every truck manufacturer is this way, and they've always been this way. I can go back 30 years and dealers weren't speccing trucks right. 25 years ago, they weren't doing it right. 10 years ago, they're still not doing it right. But what I'm telling you is that can create an advantage. I'm not going to change this system. Nobody is.
How do I get it? How do I get to, like, okay, let's go to a Freightliner. Henry, you can chime in on this. Every Freightliner that you order off the lot, Henry, your truck is no different than any other truck that you can order off a Freightliner lot, correct? I mean, if you spec your truck, what you have, anybody can get your specs on a truck, whether your parameters or everything, correct?
Absolutely. And I think the same case is with Joel with his Volvo. You got to have the right boxes checked on any of them. And you were saying earlier that, you know, carrying some water for the Volvo crowd, that you're not screwed. I mean, right here on this show, you're talking to Joel, you find out those parameters and you get yourself set where you need to be set. It's all a matter of educating yourself of what the different things do. And unfortunately, like Kevin was saying, the salespeople aren't necessarily the best help on that. It's come a long way, that whether it be with Freightliner and with Volvo, I think with Volvo or any of them, or International with their new S13, there's certain combinations that you put together that should be able to do what's prepared to be done.
Yeah, so
like it was before,
so Henry,
really mix up.
And you've seen this, Henry, so you know what you're getting lifetime on your truck. You know several other people that have identically spec trucks as yours. How many are getting the exact same fuel mileage that you're getting?
Yeah, probably not.
Well, not getting exactly. I got one that's doing better right now, which is really bothering me as a driver.
So let me address this, though.
But the point is that there's so much variability in duty cycle, weather, temperature. I mean, there's just a huge amount of spread there. So the expectation of, say you have an older truck, and let's just take this for an example, that the older truck was getting 6.5 miles a gallon. You went out and bought a new Volvo or Freightliner, because me and Henry are getting 10.5, and you get 8.5. Are you mad because it's not getting what me and Henry are getting in a different duty cycle, or are you not satisfied that it's getting 2.5 miles a gallon better than your old truck?
Let's address something else, not just duty cycle. Duty cycle is important, all of those variables we talked about, but here's another one. Joel, Henry, I could throw myself in here. The number would be staggering if we could figure out what it was. How many hours have you spent learning about fuel economy in your career? A lot.
I couldn't even begin. Couldn't even begin to add it up.
That counts.
And that's what I was going to say. Just the driver themselves. What they show in fleets, 30% from the worst to the best. So a driver can take it that far.
And that's my point here, is that I don't want a level playing field. I busted my ass to learn this much about fuel economy so I could go out and produce those kind of results. So could both of you have done the same thing? Why should somebody be able to walk in and just buy a truck and match us? If they do, we'll probably work that much harder to figure out how to get 1 more mile per gallon. That's what competition is all about.
If the trucks are the same, then we're looking at the driver.
Well, and the driver
being the
is still
difference.
30%.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with the drive? Okay, 30%, but maybe I'm only 5% less than what Joel and Henry are.
We don't.
But
know
if
that.
I don't have the same.
But
so-called
But Don, we're telling
specs,
you could have had.
How do we know
specs.
that?
You could.
Well,
have
part of that is, and here you are on the show. You can find out exactly how Joel has his parameters set, and I know in our case you can adjust them as well. And there's some things I turn on, some things I turn off, and knowing that will get you there.
My point.
So
it's almost kind of ironic.
On parameter set. On parameter set, if you were running the identical duty cycle that I'm running, maybe that's a good idea. But if you're not, maybe it's not. It might hurt you.
But and here's another point. It's kind of ironic that we're arguing about this on this show. I don't know anywhere else that has worked as hard as we have to help people learn this stuff. It's not like we're trying to keep it a secret. We come on the show every single day, and
I don't have a computer to get into these parameters to actually. And I have, even if I could get into the parameters, I would have no idea what needs to get set, Don, how it needs to get set, and what it's going to, what benefit it's going to do.
You ain't the only one. Let me tell you something. When you open up that computer screen, there are literally thousands of strings of parameters in there that nobody has any idea. I mean, you got to call a certain guy over in Sweden that took care of this certain block. Okay, what exactly does that do here in North America? Because I know what it was supposed to do in Sweden, but there was something lost in translation when it came over here. This is a problem across the board with all of the OEMs that those parameter sets are incredibly complicated. And a lot of times you open up the box with a description and you read the description and you go, what in the hell does that mean? You know, how does that apply to anything? So there's a whole lot of hit and miss that goes on there, and a lot of stuff that I have tried over the years that may only apply right to my individual duty cycle. That, you know, when I had test trucks that weren't available to the public yet, you know, we would try different things because we didn't even understand exactly how those parameters were going to work. And, you know, we're still working through that.
Joel,
exactly what impacts how and when and why you would use it.
I'm going to come back to the same argument. Shouldn't you be rewarded for all of that work you've done to understand this? I believe
I get all that. And I understand exactly what you're saying. But when you've got a guy here that wants to improve, and Don absolutely wants to improve. He wants to get better. But you have to look at what your expectation actually is for your duty cycle. And the best thing you can do is to benchmark against guys that are in your particular duty cycle. And we do that as a fleet, my brother. You know, we find fleets that are very similar, and then we'll benchmark against fleets. Because when you look at basically what I do and what Henry does, we show what the ultimate potential of that truck is.
Right.
Are all duty cycles going to allow you to hit that ultimate potential? Absolutely not. It's not going to happen. Henry has got a beautiful, beautiful aerodynamic trailer with a lift axle on it that most people don't have access to, and that really helps him, you know, put up some fantastic fuel economy numbers at higher speeds. It shows what the potential is when you do this, this, and this. Will everybody achieve those numbers? Absolutely not. It's not going to happen. Henry has been around forever and a day when it comes to this stuff. He has, you know, the same types of contacts inside Freightliner that I have in Volvo. So, yeah, can we tweak things here or there? You can get a computational fluid dynamics expert that looks at his trailer and says, hey, Henry, you might want to tweak that little fairing back there this way or that way. So is that an advantage? Yes. Henry's showing the potential of the truck. I'm showing what the ultimate potential of the truck is. Is your duty cycle conducive to reaching the ultimate potential? I don't know. You know, I don't live your duty cycle day to day. If I remember right, you were going out to Denver on a regular basis. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was going to Denver, and now I'm running Dallas, Austin, Houston, San Antonio.
And then back up to Iowa?
And back to Iowa, yeah.
Gotcha.
And it's a different trailer every week. I mean, I'm kind of like you pulling Schneider trailers. Some week I got something that's got aerodynamics, and some people or some days I don't, you know.
And I feel your frustration on that, because that can really, really spank you. We talked about wheel bearing adjustment. Maybe you're pulling around a bunch of trailers that the guy adjusts the wheel bearings way too. How in the hell would you know? Because you're switching them. I run into that same shit. So there's a lot of things going on there. The other thing is the speed and time management that we always harp about. I am willing to bet that I'm probably running a little bit slower average speed than what you're running, and that's going to contribute significantly to the fuel mileage on it. I run 58 like Kevin when I can. You know what I mean? And a guy running 62
I
or
set the cruise
65.
between 60 and 65. Yep.
Yep.
So
yep.
I'm
so
giving up
there's
what,
a
a
little
half
bit
mile
of
a
it.
gallon to
Potentially.
Well, and there's other things.
Potentially.
I mean, and Joe, I'm sure you do this. Like, I even go down to where I take my breaks. I try to always do it on top of a hill or on flat ground. Every time if I pull up to a security shack, the engine gets keyed off. People that have ridden with me, they're like, you pretty much don't have that engine running unless the wheels are turning. And I said, other than if I run my microwave at night, that's true.
Exactly.
And then that's for 3 or 4 minutes.
And look, we could apply this same logic to every other aspect of business. All we're saying here, fuel mileage is complicated. There's never going to be a standard fuel mileage across the board, no matter what we do. And it is a way to get better at business than other people. It's our biggest expense. It's why the three of us have always focused on it. But I could say the same thing about building good relationships. There are some people that are horrible at building relationships. There are some people that are really good at it. Some of it's personality, some of it's because they've put in the work. That this is why the majority of people should not be in business. The majority of people are not willing to do all the work it takes to compete in very competitive environments. I really don't consider small trucking companies competitive at all. I think the bar's been set really low.
Well, not only that, Kevin, and I always like to parlay things back to racing. You look at many racing series, how equalized everything is. Yet there's a few people that win more than the others do.
True, it's still.
Why? They figured.
Right.
There's one thing just to think about here, and you know, this is kind of frustrating to me. Like Henry says, "Oh, I know this guy that's doing a little bit better than me." Travis is kicking my ass. I mean, he just is. I have never been able to put a truck. Well, hey, listen, give credit where credit's due. That kid is kicking my ass. He just simply is. When you look at his 30, 60, 90 right now, it blows me away when I see that. He's at 10.95 on his 90 day. He's over 12 for his 30 day. He is a robot. I mean, you tell him to drive. I could call him right now and say, hey, Trav, I need you to drive 47.5 mile an hour down to Miami from Ohio. I'd go, okay. And he would do it. It's just the way he is. And it wouldn't bother him. He'd be happy as a clam. That kid is just something else when it comes to fuel economy driving. So I feel your frustration there. I look at Purple Haze's numbers right now and I'm thinking, God damn, how did that happen? But that's all Trav. It just simply is. He's just
it's going to be on, Joel, when you get back in that truck or you two switch.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's in the blue one right now, and I made him run it faster because I didn't want to see that. I said, Trav, you're gonna have to run 62 this time, but no, we had a couple tighter loads that we had to get. But he's anything he touches, as long as we dispatch him correctly, where he's got a little bit of time. Oh my God, that kid just puts up killer numbers that. I don't give a damn. He could be in a dump truck with a bed up in reverse, and he'd get those kind of numbers. He's got that knack.
So Don, we got to kind of wrap this up. Let me just say this.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
Where can I go? What dealer would you recommend for me to sit down with them and look at these parameters to make sure my number one, get my lift axle figured out, because I think they're putting more according to my gauge on the dash. I'm putting probably about 400 more pounds on the front axle than I am that drive axle for the adaptive loading. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And just make sure everything is kind of set up the correct way.
Yeah, I've got your email. I've got 14 other people, but I'll call you as soon as we get off here, and I got to think about that for a minute, to think who in the hell is going to give us the best best parameter guy that I know at a dealership. But I'll call you right afterwards here. As soon as I get off here,
Okay.
I'll give you a shout, and we'll
Okay.
kind of walk through it and see what we can figure out. But where are you at right now, fuel mileage wise?
My 30-day, and shit, pull up a couple numbers here. That's profit. Don't want that one. 30-day is 8.6. My 60-day is 8.3. My 90 is 8.5, and I'm 8.5 for lifetime.
Okay, and you're just coming out of the cold weather here, so that's all going to start to migrate up.
Yep.
You're not, by any stretch of the imagination, horrible numbers, and you're running in the over 60 mile an hour, correct?
Yeah, I set my cruise at 63 mile an hour, 64 mile an hour, and
okay, all right.
You all,
All right.
are so slow.
I'll give you a shout here after the show, and we'll walk through it again. See what we can
Don,
figure out.
let me just kind of tie this up with a bow. Nothing you said today was incorrect or wrong. It was true. I mean, I wasn't debating what you were saying. What I'm trying to do is get you to think about it in a different way, because we're never going to change this in the big picture. I never see a time where you're going to walk in and the dealer's going to help you spec a truck for very specific things. But I look at these kind of situations as an advantage, not a problem. It gives me an opportunity that I can go do something. I can go educate myself more on this issue and make myself more competitive. That's how I look at this, and I don't want that to change. I like all these variables that give me an opportunity to be better.
That's right.
And that's why I debated forever to whether I was going to rebuild a 12.7 and go back again, or what I was going to do. And I decided to go this route because I wanted to lower my cost. Hell, my operating cost without the driver pay figured in this, my operating cost is $1.27 a mile with this new truck. That's fuel, everything, according to profit gauges.
Well, let the average for a big fleet is $2.28 a mile. Now that is with driver, but most of those big fleets are not paying anywhere near $1 a mile to the driver, which means you're already more.
I can pay myself a driver mile.
What's that?
I said I can pay myself $1 a mile.
Well, that's what I mean. Right, you can. That's what I'm saying. You're doing well because you're able to do things that big fleets can't. That's the whole point of business.
But I want to do better.
Good.
There you go.
We're trying to help you. Right.
2 more miles to the gallon is another.
Right.
Of course.
Another 2 miles to the gallon is going to put another 25,000 miles in my pocket.
I get it.
Yeah, of course it will.
Right. And we're trying to help you get there.
Frustration override your sensibilities, and that's kind of what happens, because you see that and you know it's possible, and you're like, damn it, and you struggle, and then your frustration levels come up, and that's you got to learn to temper that frustration level and keep your eye on the prize. You'll get there. And it just takes a little bit, but you'll get there.
And with that, Joel's going to call you. We'll get you there. That's the whole point of this show. We go do this kind of work, and not just on fuel economy. We do it on all kinds of things to figure out how to be more efficient, more profitable. But then the good news is we come on the air every day and share it with all of our competitors.
It's going to be a while before Joel calls you, because, Joel, isn't it our goal, being we heard Kevin wants to get off the show, to keep him as long as we can?
Wait, the phone lines are completely full again. We were down to like 2 calls. I thought, maybe I'll get out of here by 10 o'clock today, except they are full again. So we got to keep working on them here. We're going to go to Wisconsin. Joe, welcome.
Hey, guys. Two points I want to make. One is about tires. Using steer tires in all positions, what's the benefits or disadvantages?
I'll give mine, and then I'm sure the other guys have some. Let's call them all position tires, because that's really technically what a steer tire always ends up being. It's really an all position tire. So what are the advantages to running all position tires in all positions? One, I've found they're smoother and quieter than lugs. Rib style tires are very smooth and quiet. It's a really nice ride. Many times we don't have to really think too hard about the model of tire because most all position tires now have really low rolling resistance, whereas some of the lugs are still horrible if you're not careful. And a huge advantage for me was the ability to move a tire anywhere I needed it based on irregular wear. So if something went wrong on my steer axle, and I by the time I caught it, there's already wear on that steer tire. And once we set up that pattern, it's virtually impossible to stop unless you move the tire. We take that steer tire with the funny wear pattern, we put it back on a drive axle, and we get all kinds of life out of it. I also found that putting tires on a drive axle first and putting some miles on them, then moving them up to the steer axle made them last longer and wear better. So those were the advantages for me. You're dealing with one tire, which simplifies things. They're quiet, they ride good, they give good fuel economy, and now I can move tires anywhere I want. Until wide singles came out, that was my tire strategy on every truck I ever owned. They all ran all position tires in all positions.
Do you think that they last just as long if, as what I'll call a conventional setup? Do the tires last as long, do you believe?
It's not enough. The difference is not enough for me to worry about it. And we've also talked about this before. Tires last so long, and the real cost per mile on a tire is just not that much. So the difference between one tire and another, because I get, 10 or 15,000 more miles out of it, is almost too small to measure.
Right, and that's what I thought, but I figured since we had you guys on today, let me ask. Any cons that anybody can come up with?
I don't think that I'm quite in lockstep with Kevin anymore on this. I think up to about 3 or 4 years ago, I would have completely agreed across the board with everything he said. I think the top tier tires now, and we talked about this a couple shows ago, they're rolling out some new stuff, some new technology, and I think it's going to probably, let's see, what's the right word for this? So the new position-specific tires from Michelin are going to probably outperform in all instances across the board the all-position tires that we'd used in the past.
I could see that.
Including fuel efficiency, even with the bigger treads and the bigger lugs and the noise levels, everything is going to improve with position-specific tires, let's say from today forward.
I could agree with that.
If you're buying a non-Michelin top-tier tire right now, I would say Kevin's approach is still valid, especially with the Tier 2 tires. But if you're going to buy specifically a Michelin, a top-tier tire today, you're going to want to go position-specific.
Yeah, I'm a second-tier tire guy.
Do exactly what Kevin's talking about then. You'll be spot on.
Yep. Okay, good. I appreciate all the info.
All right.
Any other viewpoints?
I agree with where you went with on that. And it's funny on the position specific and
the other comment I had
on a 6x2 that when I tried to put what would have been, their deep tread regional wide base single, I tried to use that as a drive. That just did not work.
Yeah, traction is all good on. Traction is fine, correct? On the drives for
There are times, several times, where traction's better. In the rain, a rib tire is much better at not hydroplaning than a lug style tire. And in slushy, wet, snowy conditions, I have found that the rib tire outperforms. Yeah. It's deep snow where
just
the
don't
lug
get it
really
off-road.
Right. You don't want a rib tire off-road. They'll fill up with mud in a heartbeat, and you got to slick. And in deep snow, a lug might outperform. But what I've found is across the board, nobody has ever called me and said, I put all position tires all the way around, and it created a problem.
Yeah. Okay. So my other comment was about Matt. Matt running the New International.
Yeah.
I am like Matt. I like to run older trucks, and I had been running a 2010. That's how new I got. And I just reversed and I went back to a 2001 just because I don't like anything to do with emissions. There is the learning curve to go with it, which, takes time, effort, and it takes money. I know you guys preach all the time about staying on top of your maintenance and learning about them. But I'm not into learning too much more about stuff. It's a little complicated for me, and I decided, instead of buying newer, because I had a conversation with you guys about 6 months ago, buying newer or older, and I finally decided to go backwards. And my duty cycle is fine for what I do. I could do small repairs and stuff like you guys were talking about earlier, like Matt. And the newer equipment, if you need work done, you need the tech with the knowledge, and he needs to have the computer and the software to help, or to do the job. And that's why I decided to go backwards. So for Matt, think long and hard if you move forward on a newer truck, because to me, I found it in the shop a lot more than I felt comfortable with. So that's why I decided to go backwards. I'm in a 2001 Volvo again.
There's another lesson there too. When we hear that these newer trucks are ending up with emissions problems and they're back in the shop a lot, we know how to fix that now. Again, this comes down to who has more and better knowledge. If you spec the truck to run in the correct operating range, you maintain it properly, there are tips and tricks that really keep these trucks out of the shop. I have looked at several business reports lately where people have new trucks, and I am shocked at how low their maintenance cost is.
Well, yeah, adding to that, Joel, I wanted to say to you, because I've never had that much problems with emissions to begin with, but and I didn't have the 04s and through that area. But what is the difference that with the emission versus non-emission truck comes down?
Joel, were you able to hear that or not?
I got part of it.
Yeah. Also, before there's a lot going on here today. You guys are all conspiring to keep me here till 11 o'clock today. Alec decided to show up.
You're way short. Weird.
I'm sorry, I'm coming late to the party, and I'm the second string, so we can take it to 12 if you'd like.
Easy. So what I was going to say, that most of the people I know that end up having problems with emissions are also people that, when you see them fueling, when you see them at the security shack, when you see them here, when you at night, whatever, the truck, and for the most part, everybody end up.
Hey, Henry, I'm not sure what's going on with your phone, but it's clipping the beginning and ending of your sentences really bad.
What I was going to say, how's that?
I think it's better.
Is that better, Kevin?
Yes, give that a try.
Well, what I was going to say, the biggest thing that I see where people have problems with the emissions engines, where either the first person that had it or they themselves have a good bit of idle time. I've never had really much problems with the emission systems to speak of, and all the people I know that had problems, and it's not so much a problem now on the newer ones, but it was people that idled a lot. On my truck,
yeah, there's no doubt idle time can be an issue. So, but again, this is one of those things we've kind of figured out. And when you have the knowledge, it's one more advantage you can create. Hey, couple things I want to cover here, if I can find them now. Joel, you seem to be, but well, both you guys are really up on the. Who's really noisy? Henry, is that you? I think it's you because I also hear you cutting out. I'm going to mute you for a second. See, that's you. Henry, you've got a really, really noisy line and you're breaking up a lot. I think you're probably breaking up, clipping the words because of all the background noise. Sometimes the mics will do that. So you might want to just try to get to someplace a little quieter. I was just reading something. Actually, I watched this video online. In the video, the truck had both a forward-looking camera and a rear-looking into the cab itself. And you see this driver start to lose control, and he very, very early into this issue, he completely lets go of the steering wheel and just sits back with his arms on the armrest. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, drive the damn truck. I mean, the wheel's all over the place and the truck's all over the place. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Well, somebody just posted this. I don't know if this is true or not. But it says, if you read the manual on anti-skid on new vehicles, they tell you to let go of the wheel in skids because it will correct itself. And if you're counter steering and it's trying to correct yourself, it just causes more issues. Is that true?
I've never heard that.
Me either. I don't know if I could.
I'll have to go back and read the manual on that. Yeah, I've never heard that.
I'm not sure if I could let go of the wheel in a situation like that.
I'm with you. I'd have a death grip on it.
Exactly. That would be a really hard instinct to fight. But in this, that's why it was so shocking when I watched this. As soon as the truck started to slide a little bit, he just took his hands completely off the wheel. And the rest of the video, I'll bet it goes on for another 10 or 15 seconds where he is no longer driving the truck. And then they crash.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did it turn out, Kevin?
I couldn't do that.
It was a crash. So obviously letting go of the wheel, I don't know if it helped at all, but it didn't avoid the crash, that's for sure. I kind of feel like if I could have held the wheel, I might have had a better outcome.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And then here's something else interesting, only because I'm working with somebody now and I wanted to talk about this again. Somebody posted in LinkedIn and they tagged me. They tagged me specifically. It says, my brother-in-law is a second-generation owner-operator. Between him and his father, they've weathered bad markets for decades, but this current market has them on the brink of closure. I want to help my family find a relationship that can get them through this chapter of trucking. And the reason I bring this up is because I have an incredible success story in my coaching program, and I've been talking about it for a while now. Remember the small family fleet I told you about that's been around for decades? They know how to get through good times and bad times, but they were just really getting hammered in this market. Yeah, and they were about to go out of business, and they could not get drivers, and they were paying a lot of money for a local job. And then we put the fuel bonus program into place. Remember telling me?
I remember that.
Yeah. The update from last night.
I met him at the show.
Oh, yeah, you did. Right. The update from yesterday's coaching call, he now is up to 15 drivers on a waiting list.
Good for them.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, and he came across this contract that right now he has to rebid it every 2 months. But it's a fairly local contract. The drivers are home every night. They're home every weekend. And they're doing close to like $3 a mile gross on this, all miles. There's no deadhead on this. And at some point, we may be able to slip seat these trucks and double the revenue.
Oh,
well, that's a damn shame, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. And now his question for me yesterday was, should I try to go in and see if I can get them to negotiate this for 6 months instead of 2? And I said, oh, hell yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think he might be able
And
to
with
pull
the
it off.
rates as low as they are,
really
yeah.
like the service he's providing.
Well, and on top of that, good people.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so it's been really rewarding. And I've got a lot of success stories out of the coaching program. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Henry, are you back now?
Yes, I'm back.
All right. You sound a little better.
What the problem was, I have my truck my trailer in the shop, and every time I get near the truck, it tries to start trying to skip over to the truck.
Yeah, we haven't quite figured out that technology yet.
I had to move farther away.
There you go. All right, we got to get back to some calls because they're piling up on us. Let's go to Matthew in North Carolina. What's on your mind today?
Hey, how's it going? I heard you guys talking about APUs earlier.
Yeah.
Just figured I'd call in and let you know. I actually built my own electric APU on my truck.
Okay, tell us about it.
So basically, I went out and bought a battery box and I put it in the frame between the sleeper berth of the truck and the drive axles. That allowed me to put 2 additional batteries in there. So I've got 6 AGM batteries on my truck total. And then I got an electric air conditioner that I've got underneath my bunk to provide, so to run off of the batteries. And that also has an additional 2 extra lithium batteries that I keep under the bunk as well because the lithiums need to stay a little bit warmer.
Okay.
And then I grab some solar panels and I throw them on the roof.
There you go.
So I'm able, and like I've tested and stuff like that. I was down in Florida last year on a dedicated account. I mean, it'd be like 80, 90 degrees outside, and it still works. But I also okay.
What for air conditioning unit did you use?
So I went with the Zero Breeze Mark II. That seemed like it was the best available, and like even on their website, it doesn't actually put out a whole lot of cooling power, but it worked, especially at nighttime. It only puts out 2,300 BTUs, and they have the Mark III now, which puts over 5,000. But it would run for well over 10 hours just on its own battery pack, and then I still had the additional 6 for the truck.
I've tested the Zero Breeze products, and they outperform what their specs look like. If you just compare BTUs to BTUs, you would say, oh, well, this isn't going to do as well. But in the real world, it does better for some reason.
Yeah, I was actually impressed. And on their website, they say all the time, like, it's not designed to be like, in the hot Texas sun at 120 degrees. Like, it's not built for that. But, like, if you sleep overnight, when the sun's down, it is more than enough to keep the truck cool without having to idle at all. I mean, on my truck, I also have a diesel APU, so I guess technically I'm running a hybrid system. But it's nice to, it's nice to not even have to turn on the diesel APU. Because, a repair bill, even on the APU, could be $250, right? So if throughout the course of the year, the next 3 years or so, if I don't have those repair bills, it actually pays for itself. And I mean, I'm talking, I've got 200 watts worth of solar on that truck. I've got, like I said, the 6 AGM batteries and 2 lithium batteries, and everything runs perfectly fine. And the crazy part is, I started to notice that when I was driving the truck, the average voltage on the battery pack was lower starting out throughout the day, and then it just charged it back up with the alternator. And then eventually, if it was still daylight outside, the alternator just wouldn't do anything once the batteries are charged because the truck was technically running off of solar while I was driving down the road.
Sounds like a really nice DIY setup you've got.
So literally just adding the 2 solar panels, it literally boosted my fuel economy because the alternator just kind of turns off. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, sounds like a nice system.
I like that, being able to have air conditioning all night without the truck running and get up in the morning and be able to turn on my small little coffee pot and have a fresh cup of coffee before I even get moving out of the truck. That's a nice thing.
Yep, that's literally what I was doing. And it's actually incredible. My quality of sleep actually went up because even diesel, even the APU, the diesel APU, it still makes noise and vibrates and stuff like that, The electric one doesn't do any of that. In fact,
Right.
it's so quiet I can't even hear it at all.
Right.
And,
some of the APUs are noisier than the truck running.
Yeah, I mean, like, why sleep on a lawnmower if I don't have to sleep on a running lawnmower?
Yeah,
You know,
I
like
agree.
that's kind of how I feel about it. So, yeah, I mean, just the quality of everything just went up, dramatically. And there were some other things I did too, like you can put solar reflectors in the windows and stuff like that. All of that helps dramatically as well, especially when you're running a smaller system. And the best part is, all of this weighs less than 100 pounds. Besides the batteries, but
yeah, right.
The air conditioner and the lithium batteries weigh less than 50 pounds, and the solar panels probably weigh 5 pounds each. And there's a little bit of wiring and a controller. So it's actually incredible. Like, my weight budget was still there, so I could still haul the freight that I'm hauling, and I really didn't have to change my operation at all. So I'm honestly surprised that more drivers aren't doing this, because an electric APU is significantly cheaper than a diesel APU. All in, I think I paid less than $3,000 for all the electric components, including the batteries.
Yeah, nice. Now, it sounds like you've got a great DIY setup there. I think more people don't do it because it's the true plug-and-play electric systems are fairly expensive still, but if you can do some DIY stuff like this, you can get it done pretty cheaply. Let's grab another call. Let's go to Wisconsin. David, welcome. David, are you there? David? All right. I hear somebody there. I'm going to put David back in the queue. Although, Henry, I might be hearing your
I don't
line.
know if... Yeah.
You still have a lot
very
of noise.
Loud.
I was kind of busy. I'm trying to drum up more callers right now.
Yeah, stop it. Just stop it. Let's try North Carolina. Paul, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Paul's here. Hey, get closer to your phone.
Can you hear me now?
You're still pretty quiet.
I'll yell. If I can't make enough money...
Hey, Henry, I'm going to mute you for just a second so we will be able to hear him better. I'll come back to you in a second. Go ahead, Paul.
If I can't make enough money working 70 hours a week, I don't want to have to work 90 to make enough money.
Yeah, that's kind of my point on a lot of this is that do we really want to keep finding ways to work more?
No, I don't.
I don't either.
I want less miles and more money.
Now, having said all that, I know I work more than 70 hours a week doing what I'm doing. And there were times where I clearly worked more than 70 hours a week driving. But once I got smart and productive about driving, I never wanted to work that much. As much as I enjoy driving, I don't enjoy it that much.
So I left home on Wednesday morning, and I'll probably be home on Sunday night, or Sunday afternoon, and then I'll go deliver on Monday morning, and that'll be my week. But I have a couple of suggestions for guests on your Friday technology show. One of them would be Tom, the electric APU guy.
Okay.
He has a very competitively priced APU, electric. And Steve Wheeler and Harold both use that system.
Okay.
And then another guy who first I had absolutely no interest, and then I watched a couple of his videos. That guy that's building that electric hybrid truck in Canada.
Oh, the
he's
Edison.
Really smart. Yeah, he is. He's down to earth, and I think you could have some good program with him on.
Well, I have a feeling if we brought him on, I might as well just not even open the phone lines. I think that the four of us and him would probably go hours. There's so many ways, directions and questions, and I have not studied that truck very closely at all. I mean, I've seen the headlines, I've seen some posts. I don't know a whole lot about what he's doing specifically.
Yeah, well, I had absolutely no interest in it first, and then one day I was bored and a video popped up, and it's like, oh, I'll watch this, and it's like, oh, yeah, it's not something I'm going to buy, and then it was actually him that did the video about the Pacific trucks that I mentioned a few weeks ago.
Okay.
And then he was on Freightwaves on a show on there, and some of the bullshit he's dealing with in Canada.
Oh,
that government up there is worse than what idiots we got here.
As hard as it is to imagine, I think you're right.
Yeah. So, the biggest idiots in the world are in the government. Pick a country, they're there.
Sure seems that way.
Right, that's all I got. Let you carry on.
All right. Have a good day. Let's bring Henry back now that... let me do that again. All right, Henry. You know what?
Yes.
Just when I got you back, I lost the couple of calls we had. So I might be able to get out of here early
back to
today.
promoting.
I might be able to get out of here a little early today.
Say that again.
I said I might be able to get out of here a little early today. We don't have any calls. So I'll give you guys a minute or so to wrap things up, or any final thoughts, and I think we're going to put a lid on it today.
Well, my thought is, no matter what brand you're running, do your research like you do anything else. I mean, that puts you ahead. I mean, whether it's that or finding your own customers or whatever, people are like, well, how'd you do that? Well, it takes work, and it doesn't just fall into your lap on any of it. And I really enjoyed that call with that person, and I look forward to hearing from you, Joel, how that works out after you two talk of getting him in the direction he wants to go.
Henry, I thought you were joking when you said you were trying to drum up calls, but I just caught you. You're actually posting on Facebook telling more people to call in.
Well, I wasn't joking. I'm an overachiever.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I told you I was doing it. So, did you think I was telling you a story?
Yeah, I thought you were kidding.
So back to the phone call with Don. I've talked to Don a few times on, off the air, and he is a guy that he wants to be the best at whatever he does. And, sometimes you gotta temper your expectation level, see where you are at, where you're at now, and, where you want to be. And his path of progression, I think, is just fine. But he's hungry, and he wants to break the 9, the 10, the 11. He wants to get into that area, and it can get frustrating at times. Things never move along fast enough. I feel his frustration, and he's got a pretty good knowledge base. So when he walks into a dealership, generally he's going to know more than what the dealer does, and that's frustrating as well.
It is.
So I'll try to help him along as much as I can. But I guess words of wisdom, just temper your expectation levels when you're doing things, or at least understand if your expectation is realistic, and watch your line of progression. As long as you're moving forward, you may not be where you want to be yet, but as long as it's moving forward, I mean, you'll get there eventually.
That's good advice. I agree. And it's mostly mindset, and I can kind of, not to the extreme, because you're right. He's trying. He has learned a lot. He's just hitting some frustration points. But, we started off the show today talking about these groups in trucking that what they want to protest everything. They want the government to fix things. And my experience in life is, if there is anything left in any situation that I can still control, I'm going to work on that before I expect anything out of anybody else, because most of the time when I expect things out of other people, I'm disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's the way to succeed in almost anything is educate yourself. That really, to me,
that's right.
Almost everything comes back to this. I just posted Ben Greenfield's book list. Ben Greenfield is a really successful guy, is an elite endurance athlete, and he's got a big following, and he's done really well in life. And he posted his 25 best books. And many people that I know that are really successful in a lot of areas of their life read a lot. You're either going to read what somebody else has already put in all the hard work to learn, or you're going to have to learn it all on your own. And in my mind, there's just not enough time to learn all this. Why would I? Why not just go to the people that have already learned it and learn it from them?
Yeah, one of the things I think is really important in the regards of understanding where your expectations should be and your progression timeline. A lot of times we expect that progression timeline to move faster than what reality is going to kind of let it. And when you kind of forget about your progression timeline and just focus on what's at hand, right what you're dealing with at the moment, then that timeline moves faster. And, if you're looking at I'm at 5, he's at 10.5, and you keep making that comparison back and forth, you drive yourself nuts.
Yes,
you just do.
Will.
Focus on your duty cycle. Understand if you're doing well for your particular duty cycle by benchmarking against folks that are doing the same thing that you are. Don't benchmark against me necessarily if we're not doing the same thing. And then just focus at the job at hand, incrementally get better and better every day, and pretty soon that timeline just takes off and runs.
Yep.
And you're where you want to be in no time.
Good advice. Hey, Alec, I'm watching you,
You caught me, huh?
Uh-oh.
He's out there trying to drum up calls now.
Yeah, you got me. Well, I did say noon, so I got another hour.
That's true.
Hey, I'm going to piggyback on something that both of you guys just said.
Okay.
And I call it efficiency. And just wrote an article that I'm hoping will be published this week on that very point, is combining education and just applying things that are applicable to your duty cycle. We get a lot of rash, Joel and I, for, people saying, well, gee, my duty cycle is different. I haul platform, I haul heavy, blah, blah, blah. I can't do this. I can't run high ratio. Okay, fine. So discard that one piece, but apply the others. In order to be competitive in this market, and as you said, Kevin, I think it's really good advice, is to not look to the government to help you out, unless you are, getting 11 miles to the gallon and you're the most efficient truck on the road. Until that point, you have no right to be blaming brokers who are also going out of business. The large fleets are going out of business or losing money or scaling back. This is a tough market for everybody. So this is where efficiency is the key, not just in, fuel economy, but how you're running your operations day to day, where you're buying your fuel. And there are three parts to that. It's quantity, price, as well as within the network and optimizing your purchases along the way. So it's very sophisticated. This is where both education and efficiency is going to separate the men from the boys, or the wheat from the chaff, or the cows from the herd, or how you want to put it. Efficiency is the key.
I believe so. And it's a complicated business. If you want to be as efficient as possible, you got to learn.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It used to be, when fuel prices were really low, Kevin, you used to say years ago, and maybe not that long ago, hey, a monkey could do this.
Right.
Not so much anymore.
No.
This is a sophisticated business. I mean, and I'm on the front line sitting next to Joel, and the chessboard that he's operating on is so far above what everybody on this counter is talking about,
right,
that you've really got to be pretty darn sophisticated. And I'm doing the same thing on the financial side. This is going to be a competitive, very competitive business, and it's going to separate who survives and who doesn't.
Yeah, and the other point I like to make, though, is you and Joel were not somehow given an advantage. The fact that Joel works directly with Volvo and gets to do really cool stuff is because he built that. That was not handed to him. Nobody got lucky in any of this. The people that make it and succeed in business do it because of hard work. It's never luck.
Nope, that's.
I'll tell you something.
We used to say
to that point. Real quick, Kevin. I probably worked 10 years just really getting in the door and establishing the relationship with the people I have relationships with now for free.
I know you did. I know that's what it takes to build the kind of relationships you build. And that's why I make it a point to say it looks like you now have all these advantages, but nobody handed them to you. You created the situation you're in.
I'll tell you straight up, I busted my ass to do that.
Yes, you did.
I worked my ass off to do that, and I'm not, when anybody says, "Oh yeah, well, you just have all this handed at you," bullshit.
Exactly.
You're exactly right. I busted my ass to get where I'm at right now, and nobody's gonna take that away from me. And I'll have that argument or that discussion with anybody. You know what I mean?
People can stand around all day and say, "Well, this is why you get 11 miles to the gallon, because you get to talk to the engineers and you get." You're right. That is part of it. But that was not handed to you. You created that situation.
I'll take it one step further, and this is going to sound like I'm blowing my own horn and yada yada. But I'm telling them how we're getting 11 miles a gallon. We are working hand in hand. There is no doubt, and there is a very good working relationship there. They're not here without me, and I'm not here without them.
Well,
it's very definitely a good working relationship, but it is not a one-sided relationship. I can tell you that.
No, and let's look at it another way. It took you 10 years to build the relationship, and I know that's not an exaggeration. And I know some people are going, "Oh, there's no way." Well, no, there is a way, and that is how business works. But I could also say this. Had you not been working for years or decades on understanding all of these factors around fuel economy, and it is a really complicated issue. We talk about it all the time. Had you not done all of that work, you would have never gotten in the door. You could have tried for 30 years.
You're 100% right.
What value would there be for them to partner with you if you were just some owner-operator that said, "Hey, I want to partner with you guys because I could see the advantages"? Well, wait a minute. There has to be an advantage for Volvo here. And the advantage for Volvo was we have a guy who is still in the truck, in the real world every day, and he has spent the last 35 years understanding this. He knows more about fuel economy than any one person on our team does.
The other thing that a lot of people are not aware of, so these engineers spend their entire careers climbing the corporate ladder. And the higher they get up on that ladder, if they screw up, all that was for naught.
Right.
And so they have to really trust the people that they're getting information from, that they know what's going on, because they're not going to put their career at risk.
That's right.
And so you're exactly right. If you go knock on the door at Volvo and you've got no history that you can prove at all, that they can sit down and take a look at, you're going nowhere, because nobody's going to take that chance. And you're exactly right. 35 years of doing this, and it's documented. That's what is important. I've got data from, day one, essentially. And so it made that transition easier, but it still took 10 years.
Right. And when you sit down with these engineers that know engine architecture, one of them knows aerodynamics, one of them knows mechanical resistance, or whatever their areas are, it is apparent quickly that you know what you're talking about. You can't fake your way through this.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. And I went through a couple of those sessions specifically, and I know exactly what they were doing. They walked me in a room with 8 or 9 engineers, and they just rapid fire
Right.
pepper you with questions.
Yes.
And you best be on your game, because you screw that up and you're going to walk out the door and never come back.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. All right, Henry, I'm going to bring you back in. I had to mute you because your line was so loud.
Yeah, I was going to say, Joe, and I took a similar progression to how you did with what I do over at Freightliner in Detroit, and you hit on that at the end. It wouldn't take long to lose all that either, would it? It's a lot of work.
Oh, that's exactly right. Oh, yeah. It's a whole lot of work. It's way more work than what people realize. It looks cool, it looks fun, and at times it is, but it is a hell of a bunch of work. And I think Alec kind of caught into this, as we came together, and we formed Alpha Drivers. I think that might have caught him by surprise as well, the amount of effort and work it takes to maintain that relationship, because it has to be at such a high level. The accuracy has to be extreme. You have to cross verify, triple verify. Alec is working full time just verifying data.
Yeah.
Most of the time. I mean, that's what he's doing. And you've got to go to those levels, or they don't trust you, and rightfully so.
Yep.
Right.
All right. Well,
you're only as good as you were yesterday.
We talked ourselves right into another phone call. So
we didn't get any more callers?
No, we actually, your recruiting efforts paid off. You and Alec managed to get another caller in here. Actually, it was a caller we were trying to get in earlier. Dave, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Wonderful. I don't know what happened. Man, was I pissed. I've been holding all morning.
Well, you're here now.
Okay, guys. Look, I sent both Joel and you over the service request I got for my Volvo. My intention is to possibly upgrade the ECU for torque and horsepower. And I would like.
I saw your list.
I
saw your list. I just need a little bit of background information on exactly what you're doing and what the spec of your truck is, and I can help you out here real quick.
Okay. Well, I'm confused on this service request because it says the last update is a 1650 torque, 475 horse, but my tag says 455 eco torque on my door.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly what I got in there. If that's been updated, I don't know. I understand when they update it, they update the tag too.
So unless you're in a dump truck, the chances of you being a 475 1650 are pretty damn slim, unless somebody specifically asked for that and put it in the truck.
I got it. Well, if you got that piece of that service report in front of you, it's got a list of 4 different specs, and on the top it says last update, and I don't know what that last update means.
So I think what this means is, as of the last update to the horsepower ratings that are available, I think that's what that means, because I would seriously doubt that you have a 475 1650 straight torque in a non-highway, and you have an on-highway truck, correct? You're not running around a dump truck or nothing.
No, I got a 6x2 VNL running highway. It's got the eco torque, and I seem to run out of torque at certain times. And
so
Patrick over there at Chris
here.
Okay.
Before we get ahead of things, what's your rear axle ratio?
It's 250.
A 250. Direct drive or overdrive?
Direct. So I'm kind of gear bound.
Okay. So this is why you have an eco torque, or you should have an eco torque in your truck right now, because you are gear bound. And essentially what it's doing is it's saying, when you're light, we're only going to give you 1650. It's a Band-Aid because you're gear bound. Essentially what that eco torque is. So could you feel like you're running out of torque at times under certain loads? Absolutely, because you are by design. and that will help your fuel efficiency. Now, if you go straight torque on this particular truck because you are gear bound, do not expect the fuel efficiency to improve at all. The drivability will probably get better. Your fuel efficiency will probably actually go backwards.
Oh, okay. Even if I remain at the 58 to 60 mile an hour where I'm designed to be, you think I'll go backward with more force and more torque?
So it's probably not going to make a whole lot of difference, because here's what's happening. So when we look at this and it says 500 at 1750, 1550, we think that we have 500 horsepower available at the low RPM that you're running around at, and you don't. What you're trying to do is you're trying to match, to get fuel efficiency, you're trying to match your horsepower applied to the horsepower required to move the load. And light loads do not require much horsepower. This is why they cut the torque, and that allows you to match the horsepower applied to horsepower required. The thing that it doesn't do is it doesn't help you with your parasitic drag or your piston speed. So you're getting a small fuel efficiency increase with this in your particular drive line with the Echo Torque. Now, you could go 500, 1850, 1650, depending on how heavy you are. What's your average gross combination vehicle weight?
Well, I'm relatively light. Most of the time, I'm right around 30,000 in the box. So I'm anywhere between between 66,000 and 73,000 on most of my loads.
Okay.
Heavier than
so
average.
you might benefit from the 1850, 1650 setting that they have available here, because you are a little on the heavier side. It's not super heavy by any means, and it will help you stay in direct drive a little more than what you are now. Just manage the speed, and it does have a torque split, so when you are light, you're still only a 1650, which is a good thing. You might see a little bit of a bump on the 1850, the Eco Plus setting.
Okay, all right. Now there's my question: Is it worth making that change, money wise?
What are they going to charge you to do it?
I don't know. These guys, neither one of them that I talked to over here at this particular dealer in my area couldn't answer anything. That's why I'm reaching out to you guys. He didn't know
is your truck,
anything about what I was asking.
Right. Is your truck out of warranty?
Oh, absolutely. It's a 4017 model. So then there'll be no upcharge for the warranty, because as you increase horsepower, then they have to back charge the warranty, and that's what gets expensive. This shouldn't cost you that much. I'll tell you what I would do. I would, at the same time, I would put the 500, 1850, 1650 in there, and then I'd have them put the gentle shift software logic in the transmission at the same time. The gentle shift? Gentle?
Yep. Gentle shift logic, yes.
Okay.
And if they don't know the horsepower ratings on this, they're probably going to have to call somebody at corporate, because they're going to look at you like you got four heads and not understand what you're talking about. But yeah, if you go to the Eco Plus with the gentle shift logic, you'll most likely see a nice little bump in your fuel efficiency.
Well, that would be wonderful, and that would be worth my while. I was recommended to try to get an 1850 straight torque on this one here. That's why I'm talking to you guys. Straight
torque generally works best with overdrive transmissions, because you're looking to get into overdrive and stay there under light to moderate loads, and obviously overdrive gearing divides torque. So you need as much torque as possible at low RPM with an overdrive. With a direct drive, it's kind of a different story. Direct drive, by its very nature, kind of makes you gear bound, and so you need that band-aid of the split torque to help the fuel efficiency.
Yeah, I wish I'd have known that before I bought this thing, but I'm learning. And Alex, when you left the show a week or so ago, Alex said, "Get that out of straight torque." Well, I'm going to throw Alex
if
under
it was
the bus.
overdrive, that is correct. If it is,
that's right. I didn't understand the direct and overdrive.
I got you.
Yeah, if it's overdrive,
Well, listen,
that's exactly right.
I sure appreciate you going over this service request for me. Like I said, the service guy at this shop didn't know shit about it, and he was conferring with the guy in parts who knew even less about any of this stuff.
Great.
So, I mean, this is what I got, and he says that's what you got. I didn't know if this was the limit or if this was all that was available for my unit or what any of it meant, and you helped me out tremendously. And I think I'm going to inquire about that.
Yep. Get the general shift with the 500 Eco Plus, and you'll be in good shape.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much. Glad I got to talk to you today.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcome. Thanks for the
Kevin.
call. Yes.
Thanks for calling.
Kevin, it's all right for people to quit calling in now. My headset died, and I'm having to hold my phone up to my ear, which is making my hand go
see
numb.
that? When you're tired, it's okay to stop the calls. I see how this works.
Hey, my headset's working fine, Kevin, so I'm good.
Next, I can go back to the truck and get my other headset. So
we are done. I'm heading out to the farm for a bit. It's time.
For some therapy?
The sun is shining. I need a little dirt therapy.
There you go.
All right. Good show today. I enjoyed it. Thank you, guys.
Yep. Take care, Kevin.
All right. We will see you soon. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you back here next week. I don't think I have any announcements. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master.